above that 75% threshold, but fast forward 3 weeks from now, we're going to see our first rate hike, and we'll most likely see 6. So why limit yourself in capping your ability to invest in a rising interest rate environment with these types of products and take advantage of that, where you can increase your investment pool max and have the dry powder in order to do that. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it, but it is a good way to capture a rising interest rate environment. And lastly, your policy states that intergovernmental pools are eligible investments per policy. So, why not have ability to invest in other pools? It doesn't, again, I heard earlier, when you open up an account with FL Class, it does not mean you need to deposit 1 penny in FL Class. You can wait till the time is right, invest in funds, and if you're not happy with it, you could pull it back the same day. As long as we get a withdrawal request by 3 p.m., you'll have your funds the same day. That's the beauty of these types of vehicles, particularly as we rise into an interest rate environment we're about to participate in. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. Hopefully, I know that was a lot, but hopefully that was helpful.
I do have a question, and I failed to ask the other group, but I think you touched on it. So there's no minimum requirement as far as investment or what you have to maintain in any particular pool. Is that correct?
For FL Class, no. There's no minimum requirement to join. You could have as many sub-accounts as you'd like to have, but yes, there's no minimum and there's no transaction minimum.
Thank you.
I thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
So Laura, is there any other conversation before we leave this topic and the 2 presentations?
Well, I'm glad we've had this discussion because it's been apparently a while since you've looked at your policies and so forth. Also, as far as increasing the threshold to investing in the pools, I'm certainly understand that we're spending taxpayer dollars, and I'm a conservative as well. So I certainly wouldn't want to be frivolous with any investment that we make. But to take advantage of being able to invest in something higher than 75 when we've exceeded that, in the past, maybe we consider, bumping it to 85% instead of 100. If we were to make that change, that would be something that we'd have to go to the board and we would have to have a policy change. And we're scheduled to review our policies probably in April or May anyway. So I just kind of throw that out there. I did want to share that based on my conversation again with Chief Milliken, he said he was fine with going up to 100%, and he wanted me to make that statement clear. So I'm fine with that too. So I think, the guidance from you all is just to make sure that you're comfortable with this. I know that Mr. Butler has brought up a point relative to our current investments that we have. And looking at the allocation that we have, I'm just, like I said earlier, I just didn't like the fact that I have $33 million sitting in a money market account. I would intend to expand and add a 3rd pool if that's viable. And I am leaning towards FL Class. I'm very comfortable with the fact that Ken Burke is on the board. I've spoken to him. I like that it's a lot of the local organized governments that are involved with that. I also like that he's got the daily liquidity. You can be in and out. And when I did speak with Ken Burke, and I guess I didn't realize until the presentation now that he was the one that started this because of the debacle in 2008. Because he was fortunate at the time, and I know I had this conversation with Commissioner Seal, and of course she's not on the board any longer, but she remembers when that occurred in 2008-ish, when SBA froze their accounts. There were several governments within the community that could not get their money out. They got it out eventually, but he had been fortunate to move funds out and expand in a variety of areas. But there were some municipalities that actually had invested their payroll money and their operating money with SBA, and they couldn't get it out. They couldn't pay bills. So again, that's kind of why I like the fact that you have multiple pools, and I just think that 3 I think would be prudent. But I certainly am very cognizant of the fact that I'm investing taxpayer dollars and it's not my money. And I don't feel comfortable with a lot of risk and with a lot of volatility. And I would prefer not, locking in funds for multiple months or years or so forth. But and I would work with them to kind of determine how much we needed to move around. But that's kind of my thought.
Okay. Mr. Butler?
We know, it's writing on the wall that the interest rates are going up within the next 2 weeks to a month. So if we immediately do something like this, we're going to be missing the boat on a higher interest rate, which means a lower return to us. So how much of a rush are we really in?
Well, I'm looking at December 31st numbers, and I don't know what January 30th is, but as of December 31st, we had almost $34 million with Truist Bank, who are A-plus rated, but from which we get, 0.05%. So, the sooner we moved any of the, granted, it'll probably go up to 0.06. Pretty exciting.
Really? Is that all you expect?
From Truist?
From
Yeah.
Truist, from
the
the bank.
bank?
I mean, across the board.
No, just the bank. I'm just saying, structurally, they're almost always going to be well below, and they're not a safer place to put money, because you're looking at one investment grade creditor, which we'd be much better off with a pool, so that if any one of those big types went, and it's very unlikely to go from investment grade to, money out the door, but it's more likely to be downgraded as a credit. But even so, we would have pieces of, many more parts. So, I think it's a good idea to go ahead and do. I think to Laura's point earlier, and I think Colleen, as she set this up, the investment officer at JWB is not me, and it's not this committee, it is Laura Brock. However, she's smart, and she wants to hear what you all have to say, and it does not. Now, the piece that would be to increase our mix from up to 75% of our funds in pools to 100%. I think it'd be handy for Laura even to have 85%, because sometimes those go. Understanding that if they're not in those pools right now, the option is they're with Truist Bank or another bank, which to me is not an improvement. I would feel more comfortable with more of our money not being in a single bank, but being in either the pools we have right now, or frankly, either of the pool. I agree with Laura. I prefer the Florida class or FL class, but either of these pools to me would be an improvement. So the only piece that we would look to you for recommendation on to the board, if you were of a mind to, is to increase within our policy the maximum amount that can be put in pools from 75% to something higher than that.
Well, and to point out that that's the max. That doesn't mean I'm going to move everything in there 100%. It's just that I feel like that, if we bump over 75, which we have in a couple of months that I've been here, I'm not in violation. So that was the reasoning to consider that change.
And what you said was, the discussion with Chief Milliken last night was that he was okay with that 100%.
Yes, he was.
Is this something you need a vote today?
No,
Right.
Or do we need a?
Or a recommendation from the Finance Committee to the board is what,
So eventually, we do not need a recommendation from this committee. However, the board has to approve any changes to
course,
the finance
policy,
policy. So
right.
you could make a recommendation. You could also have staff look at all of those policies, bring them to you at your April meeting, and then have the board approve them in May, unless that's longer than would be feasible for Laura if she
Right.
needs to go higher in the near.
because I did hear that you're going to have a policy review.
We will have a policy review, like we did a year ago. I'm not sure I could get that done by the April meeting, but perhaps the May meeting. So I don't know that we would need to make a decision today,
Right.
but when we come through with the proposed
Right.
changes to the policies in May,
You can do that at that time.
we could do it at that time.
Okay, I would be fine with that, everybody? You both good? If we just wait for the annual? Okay, all right, well then, if no other lights, I think, Beth, do you have a Chief Executive Officer's report for us?
I do, but I will attempt to make it reasonably brief. You will hear more at the board meeting about our summit and our always award-winning video. But while we had a few technical difficulties up front that, defied all reason and all practice and all the rest, it was really an excellent summit, and I'll let Linda report to you more. At our board meeting. We've have had and will have another foray to Tallahassee on 2/2/2022. We received a proclamation for our 75th anniversary from Chris Latvala in front of his subcommittee. And Darryl Roussan, not to be left out, said, hey, I want you to come up and do the same in the Senate. So next week on, I think it's 3/3/2022, we will be doing that in front of, I believe, the entire Senate. So not a subcommittee, but the entire Senate. And Mr. McCurrick went up with us last time, and of course, Chief Milliken lives there for these couple of months. So he was there, which was great to be able to have two of our board members behaving themselves, not talking JWB business, but enjoying a cookie and the proclamation. And Judge Moore, I believe, is able to join us next week, along with Mr. McCurrick and again, Mr. Milliken there. So that, we look forward to that. One thing I would just sort of say as a broad statement that flavors everyday life at JWB, and we saw it here, we balance, every day, we balance what I call innovation and reaching more kids and doing more good with a high level of compliance and accountability and transparency. And it's all important, so, but it does, how much is too much, attention to the detail of accountability. I mean, you could say, well, how could you have too much accountability? But, how, if you look at our funded agencies, for instance, how burdensome is the review that we put on them? And, that's a range that, we could look at every single check and every single invoice that they spend, which would not be, for instance, what our auditors do here with us. They sample and they make risk-based decisions. So I just share that with you to say, on the one hand, this board, and I applaud it, set out an aggressive and wonderful strategic plan for the Juvenile Welfare Board in our community to serve the families and children. And we're taking that seriously, and we're pretty much on path to do that, which I think is amazing during, 2 years of COVID, all because we want to make an impact on children and families. And to a person, everybody employed at JWB shares that feeling, no matter what their role is and what their job is. But we also believe as employees, and I know you do as a board, that we need to be fully accountable. We need to be legally compliant with whatever we fall under, whether it's our statute or it's board policies, and we need to be transparent. And all of those things take a lot of time to do, and there is a balance to be able to move quickly and yet be in the utmost compliance with every last thing, or raise the bar on ourselves to be more compliant. So I just share that to say that's a stressor within the bowels of the JWB to make all of this happen. The other thing I would let you know is that that we have, or I have, participated as one of the members of the Pinellas, I won't get this right, but it's Pinellas Leadership Race Equity Council, along with Pinellas County, the City of St. Petersburg, the St. Pete Chamber, Duke Energy, Pinellas Education Foundation, and a number of others. And the commitment to be a member didn't require us to do anything we weren't already doing. I would say that. We had to commit to do one of a number of things that, concretely, and we're already doing a handful of those and really only needed to say yes to one. But I just wanted you to be aware that, that we sit in that room. And we were particularly impressed by the work that Barry Burton has been doing with the county. I said, gosh, I wish we had a human rights department like, he does, that did, all kind of data review and look and so on. So I'll leave it at that. Your staff are amazing. And we've seen signs of that today, and whether it's financial or program development or assessment or all of our administrative work that, among other things, have been getting all this going in Tallahassee, as well as having an incredible summit, 0 to 3, on and on. Just some amazing people that you should be very proud of.
Very much so. And I've been on the board since 2015, and I've just had an interchange with Shannon over an outdated iPad. But it does remind me that it's wonderful to have those interchanges with staff, and so responsive, and so professional, and so right on top of things. And so, again, it doesn't matter if it's administrative or if it's the highest level new programming going out there in the community. So recognize, as Beth said, a great team and wonderful to work with over, for me, a long period of time. Any open agenda items? And no cards? I have one thing I'd like to suggest before we close today's meeting. It's just me being me. The Juvenile Welfare Board Finance Committee meetings that are coming up this year, I thought it might be, Julia, to, tee that up to the Finance Committee members, those meetings coming ahead, and make sure they're on everybody's calendar, because these meetings are obviously more worthwhile with all of our committee members here. So maybe just, a little gentle reminder about the next 3 meetings, April 28th, June 16th, and August 18th. Make sure they're on the calendars. Sometimes they get missed, and it's like a last-minute thing. Oh, I didn't know. So that was just my comment on that. And so if, for lack of any other business, we are adjourned.